year was 2187, and for the first time in 200 years, the skies above Earth turned dark in the middle of the day. Fleet Commander Elena Voss stood on the observation deck of Orbital Station Kepler, watching the long-range sensors paint red dots across the star map. She had trained for war her entire adult life. She had studied every battle humanity had ever fought, from ancient wars on the ground to the small skirmishes humans had with pirates in the asteroid belt. Nothing in her training had prepared her for this. "Confirm the count," she said, her voice steady even though her hands were shaking. The young sensor officer, a man named Marcus Chen, swallowed hard before answering. "Ma'am, we count 412 large vessels. Each one is at least 10 kilometers long. There are thousands of smaller support craft moving with them. Based on their engine signatures, they are moving at nearly a tenth of the speed of light." Elena closed her eyes for a moment. 400 capital ships, humanity's entire combined fleet, built up over a century of expansion into the solar system, numbered fewer than 60 warships. Even their newest and best ship, the Ares Prime, was barely 2 kilometers long. The math was simple and brutal. This was not a battle humanity could win with strength alone. "Where are they headed?" she asked. "Straight for Earth, ma'am. No detours. No stops at Mars or the asteroid colonies. They are coming for the Homeworld." Elena opened her eyes and looked out at the stars, calm and cold and indifferent to the fear building in her chest. Somewhere out there, an alien civilization had decided that Earth needed to be erased, or conquered, or something worse. Nobody yet knew why. Nobody yet knew what these aliens even looked like. All humanity had were sensor readings, and sensor readings did not explain intentions. She turned to her communications officer. "Get me a direct line to Earth Defense Command. Priority 1. And someone find out if the diplomatic corps has managed to open a channel with these things yet." "On it, ma'am." Elena walked slowly toward the command chair at the center of the room, feeling the weight of every eye on the deck turned toward her. She was 44 years old, the youngest person ever promoted to fleet commander of the Sol Defense Network, and in this moment, she felt every bit as small and unprepared as a child facing a monster in the dark. But she had a job to do. She sat down and began issuing orders. 300 million kilometers away, on the surface of Mars, Dr. Aiko Tanaka was 3 levels below the red dust of Ares colony, working in a research facility that had spent the last 15 years digging through ruins that should not have existed. Aiko was an archaeologist and a xenolinguist, though there had never been any actual aliens to study language with, until now. Her real work had always been focused on something stranger, the ruins buried beneath the surface of Mars, structures that predated all known human colonization by thousands of years, made of a metal alloy that no human lab could replicate. The official theory was that these were the remnants of some ancient, extinct alien race that had once visited the solar system. Aiko had never quite believed that theory. She was hunched over a console, reviewing the day's excavation data, when her assistant burst into the room without knocking. "Doctor, you need to see this. Command just issued a system-wide emergency broadcast." Aiko frowned. "What kind of emergency?" "The kind with 400 alien warships heading toward Earth." Aiko's stomach dropped. She stood up so fast, her chair rolled backward and hit the wall. "Show me." Her assistant pulled up the broadcast on the main screen. Aiko watched in silence as the reports scrolled past. Alien fleet detected at the edge of the solar system. Moving toward Earth. No communication established. Earth Defense Command mobilizing all available forces. Civilians advised to remain calm and follow local shelter protocols. Calm, as if there was any calm to be found in this. Aiko's mind raced immediately to the ruins beneath her feet. She had spent 15 years of her life trying to understand what the structures buried under Mars actually were. She had found strange machinery, dormant power cores that still hummed faintly with energy after thousands of years, and most strangely of all, she had found what looked like a shipyard. An enormous, ancient shipyard, carved into the Martian bedrock, large enough to build vessels the size of small moons. She had always assumed the shipyard was alien in origin, but 6 months ago, her team had made a discovery that changed everything. Buried in a sealed vault deep within the ruins, they had found a data core, and when they finally managed to interface with it, the language inside was not alien at all. It was an ancient form of English. Aiko had kept the discovery quiet, reporting it only to a small circle of trusted colleagues and a single contact within Earth Defense Command, because the implications were too enormous to announce without more proof. The data core suggested that the ruins on Mars were not built by aliens, they were built by humans. Humans from a period of history that no historian, no archive, and no record anywhere on Earth had ever documented. Humans who had fought a war so long ago and so devastating that all memory of it had been erased, deliberately, and buried beneath the red sands of another world. "Get me a line to Earth Defense Command," Aiko said. "Priority 1. Tell them Dr. Tanaka has information relevant to the alien fleet. Tell them it's about the ruins." The message took nearly 20 minutes to reach Elena Voss, delayed by the sheer distance between Mars and Earth orbit, and by the chaos of a solar system trying to organize itself for war. When it finally arrived, flagged as Priority 1 from Ares Colony, Elena almost dismissed it. She had 400 alien warships bearing down on her homeworld, and a communications officer buried under 1,000 more urgent messages. But something about the flag caught her attention, relevant to alien fleet. She opened the message herself. It was short. A woman named Dr. Aiko Tanaka, chief archaeologist at the Ares Colony ruins site, claiming to have discovered evidence that the Martian ruins were built by an unknown, ancient human civilization, one with technology far beyond anything currently possessed by modern humanity. The message included images of the shipyard structure and a short data sample from the recovered core, translated into modern English. Elena read the translation twice. "This vessel, and all vessels within Fleet 14, are hereby placed into deep dormancy. In the event of planetary emergency exceeding threat level 9, awaken by authorization sequence. May the next generation forgive us for what we could not finish." Elena sat very still for a long moment. Threat level 9. She did not know what that classification meant, or who had created it, but she had a strong and immediate feeling that 400 alien warships bearing down on Earth qualified as exactly that kind of emergency. She keyed her comm. "Get me Dr. Tanaka on a live channel. Now, and pull every file we have on the Mars Ruins project, all clearance levels. I don't care whose desk it's been sitting on." Within the hour, Elena was staring at Aiko's face on her screen, the two of them separated by millions of kilometers, but united by the same terror. "Doctor, tell me exactly what you found," Elena said. "Don't leave anything out." Aiko took a breath. 15 years ago, my team found ruins beneath the surface, near Ares Colony. Ancient structures, technology beyond anything we can replicate today. We assumed alien origin, because nothing in human history matched it. 6 months ago, we found a data core. It's written in an early form of English, Commander. Old English, but recognizably ours. The ruins are not alien. They're human. Or at least, they were built by something that called itself human, thousands of years before any recorded history we have. And the shipyard? It's real. It's enormous. Big enough to construct vessels far larger than anything in our current fleet. And based on the power readings we've been detecting for years, dismissed as geological anomalies, I believe there are still vessels down there. Dormant. Waiting. Elena leaned forward. Waiting for what? Aiko's expression was grim. Waiting for someone to wake them up. The alien armada crossed the orbit of Jupiter 18 hours later. Earth Defense Command scrambled every available warship into a defensive formation between the incoming fleet and the homeworld, a thin line of 60 vessels standing against 400. Elena watched the tactical display with a hollow feeling in her chest, because she already knew, with the cold certainty of a career military officer, that this line would not hold. She had already dispatched a team to Mars, an emergency task force built around Aiko Tanaka's research, with orders to find the awakening sequence and use it, if such a thing was even possible. It was a desperate gamble built on ancient data and unproven technology. But desperate gambles were all humanity had left. On the bridge of the flagship Ares Prime, Elena addressed her fleet over the open channel, her voice carried to every ship standing in humanity's last line of defense. "This is Fleet Commander Voss. I know the numbers. I know what we're facing. I'm not going to pretend this will be easy, because it won't. But we are not just defending a planet today. We are buying time. Somewhere behind us, people are working on something that might change everything. Our job is simple. Hold the line, for as long as we possibly can. A chorus of acknowledgments came back through the channel, steady and resolute despite the terror any sane person would feel staring down an armada like this one. Then the alien fleet opened fire, and the first battle for Earth began. The enemy weapons were unlike anything humanity had faced before, streaks of blue-white energy that tore through shields as if they were paper. The Ares Prime shuddered under the first impact, alarms blaring across every deck. Elena gripped the arms of her command chair and watched as one of her escort ships, the Valiant, took a direct hit and simply ceased to exist. A flash of light, where a warship and its crew of 200 had been a moment before. "Return fire," Elena shouted. "All batteries, concentrate on the lead vessel." Human weapons answered, a storm of railgun slugs and missile fire lancing out toward the alien armada. Some found their mark, sparking against alien hulls, but the damage was minor, almost insulting against ships that size. The aliens did not even slow down. Within 20 minutes, humanity's defensive line had been cut in half. Ships were dying faster than Elena could track, faster than she could process. She watched her tactical display fill with red markers, one after another, each one representing hundreds of lives extinguished in an instant. "Commander, we're losing this," her tactical officer said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "At this rate, we won't hold for another hour." Elena's jaw tightened. "Then we hold for as long as we can. Every minute we buy is a minute for Mars." She thought of Aiko Tanaka, millions of kilometers away, racing against time to find an answer buried in ancient stone. She thought of the strange, sad message from a fleet commander who had lived and died thousands of years before she was born. "May the next generation forgive us for what we could not finish." Elena did not know what that message meant, not fully, but she understood, in her bones, that some ancient war had left a wound in humanity's history, one so deep that all memory of it had been erased. And now, whatever had once threatened her ancestors had returned, or something like it, and once again humanity stood on the edge of annihilation. The battle raged on above Earth, human ships burning and falling one by one, buying time with their lives for a hope that might not even be real. On Mars, deep beneath the red dust, Aiko Tanaka and her team raced through ancient corridors that had not seen light in thousands of years, searching desperately for a way to wake the sleeping giants buried in the dark. Above them, in the shipyard chamber that had haunted Aiko's research for 15 years, something deep within the mountain of dormant metal had begun, very faintly, to hum. The corridor beneath Ares' colony stretched out before Aiko Tanaka, like the throat of some sleeping beast, dark and silent except for the beam of her helmet lamp and the sound of her own breathing. Behind her, 5 members of her research team moved quickly, their boots echoing on a floor that had not felt footsteps in longer than recorded human history existed. "Report from Earth," her assistant, a young man named Diego, said through the comm. His voice was shaking. "We're losing the fleet, Doctor. Half of Commander Voss's ships are already gone. We have to hurry." Aiko did not answer right away. She was staring at the wall beside her, at a panel of strange symbols she had spent 15 years learning to read. The symbols were arranged in a pattern she recognized now, thanks to the data core, as an early form of technical instruction, the ancient equivalent of a warning label. Authorized personnel only. Deep dormancy protocol active. Do not attempt activation without command authorization. "We don't have command authorization," Diego said, reading over her shoulder. "We don't even know who was in command. That civilization is gone, Doctor. It's been gone for thousands of years." "Maybe not entirely," Aiko said quietly. She reached into her pack and pulled out the data core, a small, dark cylinder that hummed faintly with its own strange energy. "This still works. Whatever built this place wanted someone to find it eventually. I don't think they would leave a warning without also leaving a way through it." She pressed the data core against a receiver socket built into the wall, one she had found months earlier, but never dared to use. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the symbols on the wall began to glow, faint blue light spreading outward, like veins of fire, and a voice spoke in a language none of them had ever heard before. The data core, still connected to the receiver, began translating in real time, the words appearing as text on Aiko's visor display. "Voice signature not recognized. State your identification and your reason for requesting access." Aiko's heart pounded. She had no idea what to say. There was no protocol for this. No manual, no guide written for a woman standing in the ruins of a forgotten war, trying to talk her way past an ancient guardian system that had been waiting for thousands of years for someone to come home. She decided to simply tell the truth. "My name is Eiko Tanaka," she said slowly, and the data core translated her words into the ancient tongue. "I am human. I do not know who you were, or what happened to your civilization, but Earth is under attack right now, by an armada of alien warships. Billions of people are in danger. If there is any way this place can help us, I am asking for it. Please." Silence stretched out, long enough that Eiko began to fear the system had simply failed, or that her words had meant nothing at all to whatever intelligence lay behind the wall. Then the voice spoke again, and this time, there was something almost like relief in its tone, even filtered through translation. "Biological and genetic markers confirm human ancestry. Emergency threshold conditions met. Beginning verification sequence. This facility was constructed by the Seoul Defense Compact, 12,300 years before your current calendar. We were the last line of defense against an enemy known as the Kryvex Dominion. We fought them for 400 years. We lost." Eiko felt the blood drain from her face. 12,000 years. An entire civilization, an entire war, erased so completely that not even a legend of it remained in human memory. In the final years of the war, this facility constructed and sealed Fleet 14, the last reserve of the Seoul Defense Compact, along with automated shipyards capable of rapid reconstruction. We calculated that the Kryvex Dominion would eventually return. We could not defeat them then. We hoped, in time, our descendants might be stronger, wiser, or simply luckier than we were. I am the custodian intelligence assigned to this facility. I have been waiting a very long time for someone to come home. "The Kryvex Dominion," Eiko whispered. "Is that who's attacking us now?" "Unknown. I do not have current sensor data on the attacking force. However, if a hostile fleet has appeared with sufficient strength to threaten your homeworld, the probability that this is the Kryvex Dominion, or a successor state descended from them, is significant. They do not forget old enemies, and they do not stop hunting until every trace of that enemy is gone." Diego, standing behind Eiko, made a small, strangled sound. "They've been hunting us for 12,000 years? They have long lifespans and long memories. 12,000 years may be, to them, a single generation of vengeance. I cannot know for certain, but I can offer you this facility's remaining resources, if you are willing to accept the burden that comes with them." Eiko swallowed hard. What burden? Fleet 14 was built for war against an enemy capable of destroying worlds. The ships in this shipyard are not simple vessels. They require crews bonded to their command cores, humans willing to accept neural integration with systems far older and far more powerful than anything your civilization currently possesses. The process is not without risk. Some who attempted it in the old war did not survive the bonding. Those who did were forever changed. But the ships that remain here are the last true weapons this system has against an enemy like the Kryvex Dominion. Eiko looked back at her team, at the frightened, determined faces of people who had spent years of their lives beside her, digging through history in search of answers. She thought of Elena Voss, fighting and dying in the skies above Earth at this very moment. She thought of billions of people on a planet that did not know how close it stood to extinction. "Show us," Eiko said. "Show us the ships." The chamber the custodian intelligence led them to defied description. Eiko had explored the outer edges of the shipyard for years, always blocked by sealed doors and dormant systems she could not activate. Now, as massive doors the size of buildings ground open before her, she finally understood the true scale of what lay beneath Mars. The shipyard stretched for kilometers in every direction, a cavern carved from the planet's own bedrock, filled with row upon row of enormous vessels resting in cradles of dark metal. Even dormant, even coated in a fine layer of ancient dust, the ships radiated a kind of terrible beauty, sleek and predatory, built by people who had understood exactly what kind of enemy they were fighting. "There are hundreds of them," Diego said, his voice barely a whisper. 440 vessels remain in Fleet 14, the custodian intelligence confirmed. Ranging from light cruisers to the flagship class, the compact Sovereign, of which only one remains. Full activation of the fleet requires bonded commanders for each vessel, and trained crews for support roles. I estimate you do not have time to properly train a modern crew in the operation of these systems. Then what can we do? Aiko asked, desperation creeping into her voice. Earth doesn't have time. The fleet up there is dying right now. The command cores can interface directly with the human nervous system, once bonded, allowing a single qualified individual to operate a vessel with efficiency far beyond a traditional crew. It is not how these ships were meant to be crewed. It was designed as an emergency protocol, for exactly this kind of situation. I can activate a portion of the fleet immediately, crewed by bonded commanders alone. It will not be the full 440, but it may be enough to change the battle above your homeworld. Aiko turned to look at her team, and then, almost involuntarily, at herself. She was not a soldier. She was an archaeologist, a scholar, who had spent her life studying the past, never imagining she might be asked to become a part of it. How many people do you need? She asked. As many as are willing. The bonding process carries risk, but the ships cannot fight without commanders. I would recommend beginning with the smaller, more stable vessels, the cruiser class, before attempting to crew the flagship. Time is a factor. I estimate the battle above Earth will be lost within the next 90 minutes if reinforcements do not arrive. Diego stepped forward before Aiko could speak. I'll do it. Diego, you don't know what this could do to you, Aiko said, turning to him. The intelligence said itself. People died trying this before. People are dying right now, Doctor. Above our heads, right now, while we stand here talking. Diego's voice was steady, more steady than Aiko had ever heard it. I've spent 5 years digging through this place with you. I want to know what it feels like to actually use it for what it was built for. One by one, the rest of Aiko's team stepped forward as well, offering themselves for a process none of them fully understood, driven by nothing more than desperation and the simple, human refusal to let their home die without a fight. Aiko looked at each of their faces, and then made a decision of her own. I'm doing it too, she said. Custodian, prepare the bonding chambers. All of us. Acknowledged. I would advise informing Earth Defense Command of what is about to happen. If this succeeds, they will need to know that unfamiliar vessels are about to enter the battle on their side. I would hate for the last hope of your species to be mistaken for an enemy and fired upon by its own allies. And Aiko almost laughed, despite everything. Good point. She turned to Diego. Get a message to Commander Voss. Tell her Mars is about to send help. Tell her not to shoot at anything that looks unfamiliar coming from this direction. Above Earth, the battle had become a slaughter. Elena Voss watched her tactical display with a numbness that had replaced fear entirely, the way exhaustion eventually replaces pain. Of the 60 ships she had commanded at the start of the engagement, only 22 remained, and most of those were damaged badly enough that they could barely maneuver. The alien armada had lost ships too, more than Elena had expected, evidence that human weapons were not entirely useless against them. But the math remained brutally simple. 400 alien warships against 22 crippled human vessels was not a battle. It was an execution, simply taking longer than expected. Commander, incoming message from Ares Colony, her communications officer said. Priority 1, tagged urgent. Put it through, Elena said, not taking her eyes off the tactical display. Diego's voice came through, breathless and static-filled from the distance. Commander Voss, this is Ares Colony Research Team. We found the ships. We're activating them now. Reinforcements are coming from Mars. Please, do not fire on unfamiliar vessels approaching from that direction. They're on your side. Elena felt something in her chest that she had not allowed herself to feel in hours. Hope. How long? She asked. How long until they arrive? We don't know exactly, Commander. The custodian intelligence says the ships can move fast, faster than anything your fleet has. But Mars is still millions of kilometers away. It could be minutes. It could be longer. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, doing the math in her head, math that told her 22 crippled ships could not hold for much longer, not against 480 alien warships. We'll hold as long as we can, she said. Tell them to hurry. She opened the fleet-wide channel one more time, her voice carrying to every surviving ship in humanity's shrinking defensive line. This is Fleet Commander Voss. I know things look bad. I know we've lost good people today, more than any of us wanted to lose. But I need you to hold just a little longer. Help is coming. I don't know what it looks like yet, But it's coming, and it's coming from home. Hold the line. Above the burning wreckage of humanity's first line of defense, the alien armada continued its slow, inevitable advance toward Earth, unaware that deep beneath the red sands of Mars, something ancient and terrible and entirely human had just opened its eyes for the first time in 12,000 years. The bonding chamber was smaller than Aiko had expected, a circular room with a single reclined seat surrounded by dark, curved panels that hummed with quiet energy. She lay back as the custodian intelligence had instructed, trying to control her breathing, trying not to think too hard about the fact that she was about to let an ancient alien-looking machine connect directly to her brain. The process will feel disorienting at first, the custodian intelligence said, its voice now coming from speakers built into the chamber itself. Please remain calm. Resistance increases the risk of complication. That's not exactly comforting, Aiko muttered. I apologize. I am optimized for accuracy, not comfort. You may find that helps more than false reassurance would, in the end. Aiko almost smiled. Then thin filaments, impossibly fine, extended from the panels around her and touched the base of her skull, and the world dissolved into light. For a moment, there was nothing but pain, sharp and electric, racing along every nerve in her body. Aiko wanted to scream, but found she had no control over her own throat. Images flooded her mind, not her own memories, but something else entirely. Star charts she had never seen, tactical diagrams for weapon systems she had never studied, and beneath it all, a strange and steady presence, like another mind settling in alongside her own. Hello, a voice said, inside her thoughts rather than through her ears. I am the Command Corps of Vessel Designation Cruiser 7, Fleet 14. I have been dormant for 12,311 years. You are my bonded commander. What is your name? Aiko forced herself to focus through the pain, which was already beginning to fade, replaced by something stranger, a sense of vast, unfamiliar space, as if her own body had suddenly expanded to encompass something enormous, and metal, and powerful. Aiko, she managed. Aiko Tanaka. Aiko Tanaka. Understood. Initializing full systems integration. Please remain still while primary functions come online. The pain faded entirely, replaced by something Aiko could only describe as a second body, layered over her own. She could feel, distantly, the hum of enormous engines. She could sense, as though through some new form of vision, the dark cavern of the shipyard around her, and the other vessels waking one by one, as her team members completed their own bonding processes. She opened her eyes, and found herself no longer looking through the eyes of a human body lying in a chair. She was looking through the sensors of a starship, kilometers long, its ancient systems flaring back to life after 12,000 years of silence. Systems check complete, the ship's voice said. Weapons online. Engines online. Shields online. Cruiser 7 is ready for deployment, Commander Tanaka. Aiko took a breath that was not quite her own breath anymore, shared somehow between two forms of existence at once. Around her, in the vast cavern, 5 other ships were beginning to stir, their running lights flickering on in the darkness, ancient engines coughing back to life after 12 millennia of sleep. Diego, she called out, using some instinct she did not entirely understand to open a channel to her assistant's newly bonded vessel. You there? I'm here, Diego's voice came back, sounding both terrified and exhilarated at once. Doctor, this is incredible. I can feel the ship. I can feel everything. Save it for after we save the planet, Aiko said, though she understood exactly what he meant. Custodian, status report. How many ships do we have ready? 6 vessels have completed bonding and stand ready for deployment, the custodian intelligence replied. An additional 12 are in progress, crewed by volunteers who arrived after your initial team. I estimate full readiness for 18 vessels within the next 20 minutes. However, Earth Defense Command's fleet is projected to be destroyed within the next 15 minutes, if current combat losses continue at their present rate. Aiko felt the weight of that math settle over her. 6 ships. 6 ships against an armada of nearly 500, with 12 more coming too late to matter for the ships already dying above Earth. Then 6 ships will have to be enough for now, Aiko said. Custodian, plot a course for Earth, fastest possible route. Acknowledged. I must inform you that these vessels, while individually powerful, were designed to operate as part of a full fleet formation. 6 ships engaging an armada of this size will face extreme risk. Survival probability is estimated at less than 40% for the group as a whole. Then we improve the odds once we get there, Aiko said, and if her voice shook slightly, she hoped no one could tell. Diego, Sarah, Marcus, Priya, Tomas. Everyone still with me? A chorus of shaky but determined voices answered back. 5 newly bonded commanders in 5 ancient warships, none of them soldiers, none of them prepared for what they were about to do, and all of them absolutely refusing to let that stop them. Then let's go save our planet, Aiko said. The 6 ships of the reawakened Fleet 14 tore out of the Martian shipyard and into open space, engines burning with power that no modern human engineer had ever managed to replicate, racing toward Earth at speeds that made the distance between the 2 worlds shrink with terrifying speed. Above Earth, Elena Voss had 12 ships left. Commander, we've lost the Meridian, her tactical officer reported, his voice hollow with exhaustion and grief. That's 12 remaining, 4 of them critically damaged. Elena stared at the tactical display, watching the alien armada continue its steady advance. They had stopped even bothering to concentrate fire on individual human ships. They were simply advancing, methodical and unstoppable, treating humanity's last line of defense as little more than an inconvenience to be brushed aside on the way to the planet itself. Orders, Commander? Her tactical officer asked. Elena did not have an answer. There was no tactical solution to this problem. 12 ships could not stop 480. All she could do was delay the inevitable and hope that whatever was coming from Mars arrived in time to matter. Concentrate fire on the lead vessels, she said finally. Make them work for every kilometer. The battle continued, human ships firing everything they had left, alien vessels shrugging off the damage and continuing their advance. Elena watched another human ship die, the Cassandra, its crew of 180, extinguished in an instant of blue-white light. Commander, her sensor officer suddenly called out, his voice cracking with something that was not quite fear. I'm reading 6 new contacts, approaching from the direction of Mars. Their speed, Commander, their speed is not possible. Nothing should be able to move that fast. Elena's head snapped up. On screen. The tactical display shifted, showing 6 new markers streaking toward Earth, at a velocity that made her instruments struggle to keep an accurate lock. As they grew closer, sensor data began filling in details. Massive vessels, larger than anything in the current human fleet, built from an alloy the scanners could not fully identify, radiating power signatures that dwarfed even the alien armada's largest ships. Identify them, Elena snapped. Are they hostile? Unknown, Commander, but, her sensor officer paused, staring at his screen in disbelief. Commander, I'm picking up an old format transponder signal. It's human. It's registering as Fleet 14, Soul Defense Compact. Elena remembered the message from Aiko Tanaka. We're activating them now. Reinforcements are coming from Mars. She had allowed herself to hope, but seeing it confirmed on her screen was something else entirely, a wave of disbelief and desperate relief crashing over her all at once. Open a channel, Elena said. Now. A moment later, a woman's voice came through, strained but steady. Fleet Commander Voss. This is Aiko Tanaka, commanding Cruiser 7, Fleet 14. Sorry we're a little late to the party. Despite everything, despite the death and destruction surrounding her, Elena felt something close to a laugh escape her throat. Dr. Tanaka, you have never been more welcome anywhere in your life. What exactly am I looking at? 6 ships, built 12,000 years ago by an earlier human civilization, meant to fight an enemy called the Kryvex Dominion. We think that's who's attacking us now, or their descendants. We don't have a full crew complement, it's just us, bonded directly to the command cores. But these ships can fight, Commander. Point us at the enemy. Elena looked at the tactical display, at 6 ancient vessels streaking toward a battle that should have been unwinnable, and felt something shift in her chest, something she hadn't dared to feel since the Armada first appeared on her sensors. Cruiser 7, and the rest of Fleet 14, Elena said. Target the lead elements of the enemy formation. Let's show them Earth still has teeth. The 6 ancient warships tore into the alien formation, like wolves among sheep. Aiko had never fought a battle before in her life, but the ship's command core fed her tactical data faster than her conscious mind could process, and some instinct, some combination of her own will and the ship's ancient combat programming, took over as Cruiser 7's weapons opened fire. Beams of white-hot energy, far more powerful than anything the modern human fleet possessed, lanced out and tore through an alien cruiser's hull, as though it were made of paper. The ship exploded, in a silent flash of light, and Aiko felt a strange mixture of horror and grim satisfaction settle over her. Contact confirmed destroyed, the ship's voice reported calmly. Enemy formation is reorganizing to respond to the new threat. Around her, the other 5 ships of the reawakened fleet tore through the alien armada with devastating efficiency, their ancient weapons and shields performing exactly as they had been designed to, 12,000 years after their last battle. Diego's ship, Cruiser 12, weaved between incoming fire, with a grace that no modern pilot could have matched, its command core handling maneuvers too complex and too fast for human reflexes alone. But 6 ships, no matter how powerful, could not hold back an armada of nearly 500 forever. Aiko watched her sensors fill with incoming fire, the alien formation adjusting, concentrating their attacks on the new and unfamiliar threat. "Commander Tanaka," her ship's voice said, "shield integrity is dropping rapidly under concentrated fire. I recommend evasive maneuvers." "Do it," Aiko said through gritted teeth, feeling the ship bank and dive, as though it were an extension of her own body. Across the battlefield, Elena Voss watched the ancient fleet fight, with a ferocity that gave the remaining human ships new hope, new energy, to continue the fight themselves. The tide of the battle had not turned, not yet, but for the first time since the armada arrived, it had at least stopped being a one-sided slaughter. "Commander," her sensor officer called out, "I'm reading 12 more contacts approaching from the direction of Mars." Same transponder signature, Fleet 14. Elena allowed herself, finally, a small and grim smile. "Reinforcements. Right on time. Tell them to hurry, we've still got a war to win." Behind the battle, deep in the shipyard beneath Mars, the custodian intelligence continued its work without rest, bonding volunteer after volunteer to the remaining ships of Fleet 14, preparing to send wave after wave of humanity's forgotten weapons into the fight for their homeworld. Even as it began transmitting an emergency signal deeper into the solar system, toward Earth itself, where it had detected something the humans had not yet found. A second shipyard, larger than the first, sealed beneath the Pacific Ocean floor for 12,000 years, waiting for its own moment to awaken. The signal from Mars reached Earth Defense Command 11 minutes after the custodian intelligence sent it, arriving in the middle of a battle that had, for the first time since it began, stopped tilting entirely in the enemy's favor. Admiral Grace Okonkwo, overall commander of Earth Defense Command, and Elena Voss's direct superior, received the message in the underground command bunker, beneath what remained of Geneva. She read it twice before speaking. "A second shipyard," she said slowly. "Beneath the Pacific Ocean." "Yes, Admiral," her aide confirmed. "The custodian intelligence on Mars says it detected the facility's dormant power signature years ago, but dismissed it as unrelated. Once Fleet 14 began waking, it cross-referenced the data and confirmed it. There's another shipyard, larger than the one on Mars, sealed under nearly 4 kilometers of ocean, roughly 600 kilometers off the coast of what used to be Japan." Admiral Okonkwo stared at the map on her display, at the location marked in the deep, dark water of the Pacific. "How do we even reach something like that? We don't have deep-sea vessels rated for that kind of pressure, let alone anything that could break into an ancient sealed facility." "The custodian intelligence anticipated that question, Admiral. It says the facility has its own access systems, designed to open from within once the correct authorization signal is broadcast toward it. It's sending the authorization code to us now. All we need to do is get a transmitter close enough to the site to broadcast it." Admiral Okonkwo did not hesitate. "Get me anything with deep-sea capability. Research vessels, military submarines, I don't care what it is. Get it moving toward that location immediately. And someone find out how long we have before the fight above us is over, one way or another." Above Earth, the battle had entered its 4th hour, and Elena Voss had lost track of how many times she had thought she was about to die. Fleet 14 had grown to 23 vessels, Still a fraction of what Aiko Tanaka's team believed to be the full 440 ships sleeping beneath Mars, but enough to turn what had been a slaughter into something that at least resembled a real battle. The ancient ships fought with a ferocity and precision that no modern fleet could match, their weapons tearing through alien hulls, their shields absorbing blows that would have destroyed a modern human warship instantly. But the alien armada was not without its own surprises. As the battle wore on, the enemy began adapting, concentrating overwhelming fire on individual ancient vessels rather than spreading their attacks thin, using their sheer numbers to grind down the smaller reinforcement fleet one ship at a time. Commander Voss, Aiko's voice came through the comm, strained and tired in a way that suggested the neural bonding was taking a physical toll on her even now. We just lost Cruiser 19. Marcus didn't make it out. Elena closed her eyes for a brief moment. Marcus had been one of the volunteers from Aiko's research team, a man she had never even met, and yet his death felt like a wound all its own. "I'm sorry, Doctor. How are the rest of your people holding up?" "We're tired. The bonding process is intense, and we've been fighting for hours without a break. But we're not stopping, not while there's still a fight to fight." Elena admired the woman's resolve, even as she worried about the cost of it. "Understood. Admiral Okonkwo just sent word. There's a second shipyard, beneath the Pacific. If we can wake it up, we might finally have enough ships to actually win this." "How long until it's operational?" "I don't know yet. Hold as long as you can." The words felt hollow, even as Elena said them, because she knew exactly how much she was asking of people who had already given everything they had. The submarine Trench Runner, a deep-sea research vessel hastily repurposed for a military mission, descended into the crushing darkness of the Pacific Ocean at a speed that made its hull groan in protest. Captain Yusuf Rahman gripped the arms of his chair as the vessel shuddered under the pressure, watching the depth gauge climb toward numbers that no vessel of this class had ever been designed to survive at. "Depth. 3,800 meters, his pilot reported. "We're approaching the coordinates now, Captain." "Steady as she goes," Yusuf said, though his own nerves were stretched as thin as the hull around them. "Comms, is the transmitter ready?" "Ready, Captain. As soon as we're in range, we broadcast the authorization signal the Mars facility sent us." The trench runner leveled off above a stretch of ocean floor that looked, at first glance, like any other deep-sea trench, dark and lifeless, and coated in silt that had been undisturbed for thousands of years. But as the submarine's floodlights swept across the seabed, they caught the edge of something enormous, a structure of dark metal, half buried in sediment, stretching out further than the lights could illuminate. "My God," Yusuf whispered. "There it is." "Transmitting authorization signal now," his comms officer said. For a long, tense moment, nothing happened. The ancient structure remained still and silent beneath the crushing weight of the ocean, exactly as it had been for 12,000 years. Yusuf found himself holding his breath, wondering if the signal had failed, if the ancient systems had finally, after so many millennia, simply died. Then the seabed began to glow. Faint blue light spread out from the structure like veins of fire beneath the sand, and slowly, impossibly, an enormous section of the ocean floor began to shift. Ancient doors the size of small mountains grinding open after 12,000 years of silence, releasing a torrent of bubbles and disturbed sediment into the dark water. "Captain," his sensor officer said, voice trembling with disbelief, "I'm reading power signatures from inside the structure. Massive power signatures. Whatever's down there, it's waking up." Yusuf allowed himself a small, exhausted smile. "Get me a channel to Earth Defense Command. Tell them the second shipyard is opening." Inside the newly opened facility, an intelligence that had been dormant even longer than its counterpart on Mars stirred back to awareness, ancient systems flickering back to life after 12 millennia of silence at the bottom of the sea. "Authorization confirmed," the voice announced, echoing through empty, watertight corridors that had never once flooded despite the crushing pressure outside. "Emergency activation protocol initiated. This facility houses Fleet 7, designation, Pacific Reserve, beginning full systems diagnostic." Within the vast chamber beyond, larger even than the shipyard on Mars, rows upon rows of dormant warships began to stir, running lights flickering on across hundreds of vessels, ancient engines beginning the long process of returning to life after 12,000 years of silence. Fleet 7 contains 612 vessels, the intelligence reported to the human ships, now cautiously approaching the newly opened facility, including the reserve flagship, compact Sovereign-class Titan's Reach, the largest vessel ever constructed by the Sol Defense Compact. However, full crew complement for this fleet requires significantly more personnel than the Mars facility. I am uncertain how quickly you will be able to provide sufficient bonded commanders. Admiral Okonkwo, receiving the report from her command bunker, felt a fierce, desperate hope rising in her chest. How many can be operational immediately, with volunteers we send down there in the next hour? With immediate volunteers arriving via submarine transport, I estimate 40 vessels could be operational within 90 minutes. It will not be the full fleet, but it will be a significant reinforcement. Then get me volunteers, Okonkwo said, turning to her staff. Broadcast a call across every military installation and every colony in the system. Tell them Earth needs pilots, needs anyone willing to bond with an ancient warship and fight. Tell them we have a chance now. A real chance. Above Earth, the battle had reached a breaking point. Elena Voss watched her tactical display with grim focus, as the alien armada, having suffered losses far beyond what they clearly expected, began to shift their strategy. Rather than continuing their steady advance toward Earth, the enemy fleet began to concentrate its full remaining strength, nearly 400 ships, into a single, overwhelming formation, clearly intending to break through the combined human and ancient fleet in one decisive strike. Commander, her tactical officer said, enemy fleet is regrouping. Based on their formation, I believe they're preparing for a full concentrated assault. Elena felt the weight of the coming moment settle over her shoulders. 23 ships from Fleet 14, 12 surviving modern human vessels, and whatever reinforcements Admiral Okonkwo could scramble from the newly opened Pacific facility in the next hour, it would have to be enough. Aiko, Elena said, opening a channel to the ancient fleet. I need everything you and your people have left. The enemy is about to throw everything at us at once. We're ready. Aiko's voice came back, exhausted but unwavering. We didn't come this far to fall short now. Elena addressed the entire combined fleet, her voice carrying across every channel, human and ancient ship alike, uniting two fleets, separated by 12,000 years of history, but bound together by the same simple, desperate purpose. This is Fleet Commander Voss. To every ship in this fight, the enemy is about to throw everything they have at us. We are about to do the same. I won't lie to you. This is going to be the hardest fight of our lives. But we are not the same people who started this battle 4 hours ago. We have allies now, ships built by our own ancestors, warriors who gave everything they had so that we might have this chance. We are not going to waste it. Hold formation, fight together, and let's send these bastards home. The alien armada surged forward in a single overwhelming wave, nearly 400 ships converging on humanity's combined defense, with the full weight of their remaining strength, determined to end the battle once and for all, before any more reinforcements could arrive. The combined human fleet braced for impact, ancient and modern ships alike standing shoulder to shoulder in the dark void above Earth, ready to meet the armada with everything they had left. And far below, in the crushing dark of the Pacific Ocean, the first wave of volunteer commanders descended toward Fleet 7, racing against time to reach the battle above before it was decided without them. The alien armada's final assault hit the combined human fleet like a hammer striking glass. Elena Voss gripped the arms of her command chair as the Ares Prime shook violently under a barrage of enemy fire, alarms screaming across every deck. Around her, the tactical display filled with red and blue markers locked in a desperate close-range battle. Nearly 400 alien warships pressing against 35 human and ancient vessels combined. Shields at 40%, her tactical officer shouted over the noise. We're taking heavy damage across the formation. Hold position, Elena ordered. We break formation. We die faster. Stay together. Above and around her, the ancient ships of Fleet 14 fought with everything they had left. Aiko Tanaka's vessel, Cruiser 7, weaved between incoming fire, with movements too precise and too fast to be purely human, her mind and the ship's ancient command core working together as a single entity, weapons lancing out to tear through enemy hulls one after another. Dr. Tanaka, her ship's voice said, a note of concern entering its otherwise calm tone. Your neural stress levels are approaching critical thresholds. Continued combat at this intensity carries significant risk to your biological systems. Not now, Aiko gasped, sweat pouring down her face, as she pushed through exhaustion that went far beyond anything she had ever experienced. We hold until reinforcements arrive. That's the mission. Diego's voice cut through the chaos on the shared channel, tight with strain. Doctor, I've got 3 ships closing on my position. I can't shake them all. Aiko didn't hesitate. She threw Cruiser 7 into a hard burn, ancient engines screaming with power as she cut across the battlefield toward Diego's position, weapons already charging. Hold on, Diego. I'm coming. She arrived just in time, her ship's weapons tearing through the lead alien vessel, pursuing Diego's cruiser, buying him the half-second he needed to break away from the other 2. But the cost was immediate. 3 more alien ships turned their fire on her instead, and Cruiser 7 shuddered violently under the impact. Shields failing, the ship's voice reported, its tone as calm as ever despite the danger. Commander Tanaka, I recommend immediate evasive action. Aiko gritted her teeth and pulled the ship into a tight spiral, weapons still firing, refusing to retreat, even as her shields dropped further and further toward zero. She was so deep into the neural bond now that she could feel every impact against the hull, as though it were striking her own body. A strange, terrible intimacy between woman and machine that no training could have prepared her for. Commander, Elena's voice broke through, urgent. Cruiser 7, your shields are critical. Pull back. Negative, Aiko shot back, her voice strained but resolute. If I pull back, they'll turn on the rest of the formation. I can hold a little longer. She could not, in truth, have said with any certainty how much longer she could hold. But she held anyway, because somewhere behind her, 34 other ships, and everyone aboard them, were counting on this line not breaking. And Aiko Tanaka, archaeologist and now reluctant warrior, was not about to be the reason it did. 90 minutes after the second shipyard opened beneath the Pacific, the first wave of newly bonded commanders emerged from the ocean depths in vessels that dwarfed anything humanity had built in the modern era. Captain Sarah Whitfield, a former fighter pilot turned volunteer for the desperate bonding process, felt the strange, overwhelming power of her new vessel settle around her like a second skin as she broke the surface of the Pacific and turned her ship toward the sky. This is Cruiser 41, Fleet 7, requesting vector to the battle, she called out, her voice tight with adrenaline and something close to awe at the power now humming through her borrowed body of metal and light. Cruiser 41, this is Earth Defense Command. Admiral Okonkwo's voice answered immediately. Vector is being transmitted now. Get up there and turn this battle around. Every ship counts. Behind Sarah's vessel, 39 more ships of Fleet 7 rose from the depths of the ocean, their ancient engines burning bright against the darkening sky, racing toward orbit, and the desperate battle being fought there. Above Earth, Elena Voss watched her tactical display with disbelieving hope as 40 new contacts appeared on her sensors, streaking up from the planet's surface with a speed and power that matched the ships of Fleet 14 exactly. Commander, her sensor officer called out, voice cracking with emotion. Reinforcements arriving. Fleet 7, 40 vessels, and counting. Elena felt tears sting her eyes, though she had no time to indulge them. All ships, reinforcements inbound from Earth. Hold the line just a little longer. The battle, which had been teetering on the edge of catastrophe, began to shift as Fleet 7's 40 new vessels tore into the alien armada's flank, catching the enemy fleet in a crossfire it had not anticipated. The aliens, who had committed everything to their final assault, found themselves suddenly facing an enemy that would not stop growing in strength, no matter how many ships they destroyed. Aiko, her shields finally failing entirely, watched with fierce relief as the pressure on her position eased, alien ships turning to address the new threat, emerging from Earth's own orbit. Dr. Tanaka, her ship's voice said, shield systems have failed completely. I recommend immediate withdrawal to repair status. Not yet, Aiko said, though exhaustion was beginning to blur the edges of her vision. Just a little longer. The tide of the battle turned, slowly and painfully, over the next hour. Fleet 7's reinforcements, though still a fraction of the 612 ships that ultimately called the Pacific shipyard home, proved enough to break the alien armada's momentum entirely. What had been an unstoppable, methodical advance became a desperate, chaotic retreat as the combined human and ancient fleets pressed their advantage, Elena Voss watched from the bridge of the Ares Prime as the alien flagship, a massive vessel that had led the Armada from the very beginning of the invasion, finally broke formation and began retreating toward the edge of the solar system, the remnants of its once mighty fleet scattering in its wake. "Commander," her tactical officer said, disbelief evident in his voice. "Enemy fleet is in full retreat. They're leaving the system." Elena allowed herself, for the first time in nearly 6 hours, to breathe fully. "Confirm the retreat. Do not pursue beyond the outer system. Let them go." "Understood, Commander. Should I ask why? We could press the advantage." Elena thought of the ancient message that had started this entire desperate chain of events. "May the next generation forgive us for what we could not finish." An ancient human civilization had fought this same enemy for 400 years and lost everything. She did not intend to make the same mistake. By chasing a wounded enemy into a fight, humanity was not yet ready to finish. "Because we won today," Elena said quietly. "That's enough for now." 3 days after the battle, Aiko Tanaka stood in a hospital room on Earth, her body finally disconnected from Cruiser 7's neural interface. Weak and exhausted but alive, Elena Voss sat beside her bed, having insisted on visiting personally despite the enormous pressure of managing the aftermath of the invasion. "How are you feeling?" Elena asked. "Like I got hit by a starship," Aiko said, managing a tired smile. "Which, I suppose, is close enough to the truth." Elena laughed softly, the sound carrying real warmth, despite the exhaustion, clearly etched into her own face. "You saved this planet, Doctor. All of you did. I don't think there are words enough to thank you properly." Aiko shook her head slightly. "We didn't do it alone. We had help from people who died, thousands of years before either of us were born. I keep thinking about that message. May the next generation forgive us for what we could not finish. They spent their entire civilization building something for a war they knew they couldn't win themselves, just so we might have a chance. Then I suppose it's up to us to finish it," Elena said. Aiko looked at her seriously. "The Custodian Intelligence believes the Kryvex Dominion will come back. This wasn't their full strength, not even close. It was likely a scouting force, or a probe to test our defenses. Whatever they are, wherever they came from, they've been hunting the remnants of humanity for 12,000 years. They're not going to stop now." Elena nodded slowly, the weight of that truth settling over her. "Then we prepare. We finish training crews for Fleet 14 and Fleet 7 properly. We study the old technology, learn everything the Sol Defense Compact knew, and we build on it. We make sure that next time, we're not desperate volunteers bonding to ancient machines in a last-minute panic. We're ready." "That's going to take years," Aiko said, "maybe longer." "Then we start today," Elena said, standing up from her chair. "You did your part, Doctor. Rest. You've earned it. But when you're ready, Earth is going to need archaeologists who understand this old technology better than anyone alive. There's an entire history down there that we've barely begun to uncover, and a whole ocean floor, and Martian shipyards worth of secrets left to learn." Aiko managed a genuine smile this time. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." Far beyond the edge of the solar system, the remnants of the alien armada regrouped in the cold dark of deep space, their commanders relaying reports back toward the heart of the Kryvex Dominion, an empire that had spent 12,000 years believing the last remnants of humanity's ancient defenders had been permanently silenced. The reports that reached the Dominion's high command told a different story. Humanity was not merely alive, but had found and reawakened the very weapons that had once made them such a difficult, costly enemy to defeat. It was, by any measure, troubling news. But it was also, in its own way, an old and familiar story. Enemies who refused to stay defeated. Wars that never truly ended, only paused. And somewhere among the vast fleets of the Kryvex Dominion, ancient commanders who remembered, even after 12,000 years, exactly how much humanity had once cost them to nearly destroy. Back on Earth, in the weeks and months that followed the battle, humanity began the long, difficult work of preparing for a war that had, in truth, never really ended. Ancient shipyards on Mars and beneath the Pacific were studied, understood, and slowly, carefully brought fully back online. New generations of pilots, trained to bond with ships, built by ancestors none of them had ever known existed. And across the solar system, for the first time in 12,000 years, humanity began to remember who it had once been. Not a small, fragile species clinging to a single world, but the last defenders of a war against an enemy that had never truly given up the hunt. Elena Voss stood on the observation deck of a rebuilt Kepler station, looking out at the stars, no longer with fear, but with something closer to grim determination. Somewhere out there, the Kryvex Dominion was already planning its return. This time, Earth intended to be ready.